working here in America does not afford you a place to live. I think we have a huge problem because a lot of people are going to be left behind. And it's because the way the system has been designed. We got people out here arguing over who deserves help. So let me ask you all the question. Should people who are capable of working be expected to work? And I know you all have seen the proposed changes and guidelines that's coming for Section 8 recipients. They are proposing that people be required now to work up to 40 hours a week, and they're going to limit how long they can stay on Section 8. Now, this has not went into effect, but these are the proposed changes. And my question is this, because you all know I think as a social worker. I've been a social worker for over 25 years. So what happens when people work those required hours? What happens when they work 40 and 50 hours a week and they still can't afford housing? What happens to those people? That's what I want to know. What happens when they still can't afford housing? And what happens to the people who's giving it their all? They are doing everything that they can in their capacity, in their soul, and they still just can't afford housing. They're just not making enough. What happens to them? Those are the questions that we should be asking. Because we already know we got working people out here who's not receiving any benefits, who's working 40 hours plus a week, and they may be doing gig work, and they still can't afford housing. People are choosing to live in RVs, live in their cars because it's just too expensive out there. We already know that this is not the same world it was 20 or 35 years ago. You know, back then you could get a job at McDonald's or Arby's and work full time and afford a place to stay. You could afford a modest apartment. It may not be the penthouse, but you could afford somewhere to stay. It's just not like that now. I really think they should expand Section 8, to be honest. They don't even have to call it Section 8, but I think it should be expanded because we got a problem here in America. When working people can't find a place to stay that's affordable, we have a big problem here in America. And as a social worker, I see another type of people that's affected. And the world turns their back on these type of people. They're not worthy because that's just how the world is. But there's people out there who don't have an official diagnosis. They're limited. They just don't have the capacity. These are the people they have walking around since. But they just don't have the capacity to maintain a job. They try, they're not lazy. They just need a little assistance, somebody to help guide them. And you all may have people like that in your family. And there's some jobs that they're able to do, but they just don't make enough money. So are you telling me they don't deserve housing either? And then we got people out there, they work, they have a degree, they have skills and ability, but they just never make it to that earning potential that allows them to live comfortably. What about those people? They're not lazy. It's just sometimes people can work, but they just don't get to a certain level. They never get to making $80,000 or $100,000 a year, but they're giving it their all. They have degrees and qualifications. What about those people? And as a social worker, there are people who need affordable housing than there are Section 8 vouchers out here. It seems like it's just not enough. These housing authorities, you just can't go and apply for Section 8. You have to wait for Section 8 to become available. And that may be every 2 or 3 years. And they don't announce it. You have to be watching. You have to be on their website. And you know what? You go and you put in that application for Section 8 and you wait. It's so many people waiting for Section 8 vouchers out here. And it's some people who have been waiting for a long time. And they need these vouchers, but sometimes they never get them because of the waiting list. It can take years. That's why I think working people should not be turning their backs on people. I know that's how the world is made. Everybody needs to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, right? But sometimes people just be doing the best that they can. That's why I say maybe Section 8 needs to be expanded. They expanding data centers, they're expanding AI. I'm just saying. And you all know the realization I had. Working here in America does not afford you a place to live. That's facts. And I'm not saying it's not a God, because God can make all things possible. But we do also know that there's a lot of people who's living in cars, in RVs, in tents. Some people out there have 5 or more roommates just to survive. So, yes, I absolutely believe that if you're capable of working, you need to be working. You need to be out there gaining some skills, being a productive citizen. And I also believe that there are a lot of blind spots that people fail to mention. And yes, I do think that housing assistance Section 8 should be expanded, because there's people that has been waiting on the list for a long time. Too long. Now remember, this ain't the same world we grew up in. This is a different world. But I'm curious to know what you all think. Do you all think that Section 8 should be expanded? Do you know people who have limitations and they just don't have the capacity? You all let me know in the comments, because I look forward to hearing you all's opinions. You all be having some wild opinions sometimes. But I want to thank everybody in this community. Thank you for all the subscribers, the people that watch. And thank you so much for all the hypes. But that's all I got, you guys. And I look forward to talking to you all in the comments.